Imagine a prophet summoned by a foreign king who's caught between the divine will and his own desires for wealth and prestige. Yet this prophet Balaam is not an Israelite, and his story unfolds in the midst of a wilderness journey that mirrors Israel's own challenges. Balaam's tale, which includes a talking donkey, divine intervention, and a stark message of obedience, offers a fascinating glimpse into the tension between human ambition and divine sovereignty. The Book of Numbers, often overshadowed by other books in the Torah, is home to this unexpected narrative, and within it, Balaam stands as a central figure whose encounter with Israel will reveal powerful lessons for generations to come. The Book of Numbers itself is often seen as a collection of censuses, wanderings, and laws, perhaps not the most riveting sections of the Bible. However, it is in this context that we find one of the most curious and perplexing stories, the interaction between Balaam and the Israelites. While Israel is on the edge of the Promised Land, encountering countless obstacles, a pagan prophet from the east is asked to curse them. This is not just a tale of political intrigue. It's a narrative that delves into deeper theological truths about obedience, the limits of human agency, and the mysterious ways in which God interacts with even the most unexpected of people. Milgrom's commentary on the Book of Numbers gives this story the attention it deserves, analyzing not just the events, but the profound theological insights hidden within them. Balaam, though initially hired to curse Israel, ends up blessing them, a twist that's both ironic and meaningful. But to truly understand the significance of this reversal, we must first understand the context in which Balaam operates, a world where prophets, power, and divine will intersect in ways that still challenge readers today. As the story unfolds in Numbers 22, Balaam receives a summons from Balak, the king of Moab, who is terrified by the presence of Israel on his borders. Having witnessed Israel's victories over neighboring kingdoms, Balak fears that the Israelites will soon overrun his land. He knows that Israel's success is not merely the result of military strength, but of divine favor. So he turns to Balaam, a renowned seer, hoping that the prophet can reverse Israel's fortune with a curse. What's striking here is that Balaam, despite being an outsider to Israel, is regarded as someone whose words carry weight. His reputation as a diviner reaches beyond his own people. Balak's messengers bring Balaam an offer he can't easily refuse: wealth, power, and honor. Yet, even as Balaam is presented with a tempting reward, he seeks counsel from God. What follows is an unusual scene where the prophet's response is not determined by his own will, but by the divine will of Israel's God. In the initial exchange, God forbids Balaam from going with the Moabite officials. Despite the king's persistence and the increasing rewards offered, Balaam's obedience remains the key to the unfolding narrative. This episode highlights an interesting dynamic in biblical prophecy, how even a foreign prophet like Balaam must submit to God's authority, regardless of personal gain. Milgrom's commentary sheds light on the complexity of Balaam's character in these early interactions. While Balaam does not seem entirely wicked or deceitful, his willingness to accept bribes and his fluctuating responses to God's will underscore the tension between personal ambition and divine purpose. The story is a powerful reminder that God's plan cannot be swayed by human desires, and that his sovereignty will prevail even when humans try to manipulate circumstances for their own benefit. In the midst of Balaam's negotiations with Balak's messengers, the narrative takes an unexpected turn when God intervenes in a powerful, yet subtle, manner. After the initial refusal, God speaks to Balaam in a dream, instructing him not to go with the Moabite officials. This divine command serves as a boundary, clearly delineating the course of action that Balaam must follow. However, the complexity of the situation becomes evident as Balaam wrestles with the desires of his heart versus the directive from God. He is presented with an opportunity for wealth and honor, yet he is reminded that his actions cannot be governed by these worldly temptations. The story intensifies when God allows Balaam to go, but only under strict conditions. This permission is not a simple green light to proceed, but a subtle test of obedience. God's will remains paramount, and even when Balaam sets off on his journey, he remains under divine surveillance. The interplay between Balaam's free will and God's sovereignty becomes a significant theme in this part of the narrative. God does not force Balaam to choose righteousness, but he ensures that Balaam's choices are ultimately aligned with his purpose. Milgrom's commentary brings attention to the nature of prophecy and the role of personal agency in this account. Balaam's response to God's vision illustrates the nuances of prophetic authority in the biblical world. While Balaam is a foreigner, not an Israelite, his interaction with God demonstrates that divine will transcends national boundaries. This story is not merely a tale of one man's disobedience or compliance. It is a lesson on how God's will shapes the world, subtly guiding the actions of even the most unlikely figures. As Balaam sets out on his journey to meet King Balak, the story takes a dramatic and supernatural turn. On the road, Balaam's path is blocked 3 times by an angel sent by God, though Balaam is unable to see the divine figure. The narrative builds suspense as his donkey, sensing the angel's presence, refuses to move forward. The animal, normally obedient to Balaam, suddenly veers off course, causing Balaam to lash out in frustration. It is at this moment that the seemingly impossible occurs. The donkey speaks. The talking donkey's rebuke is one of the most memorable and surreal moments in the Bible. In the midst of Balaam's anger, the donkey questions why Balaam has struck her, pointing out that she has always been a faithful companion. What follows is a moment of shocking clarity for Balaam. The text doesn't just present a miraculous event, but a moment of enlightenment, where Balaam's spiritual blindness is exposed. Only after the donkey speaks does Balaam's eyes open to see the angel in his path, and he is immediately humbled. Milgrom's commentary highlights the significance of this encounter, noting that the story is not just about an animal speaking, it's about the limitations of human perception and the need for divine intervention. Balaam, despite being a prophet, is blind to the divine will until forced to confront it through an unlikely source. The donkey's role is crucial. It acts as a conduit for divine correction, illustrating the theme that God can use even the most unexpected means to deliver his message. Balaam's moment of realization is a turning point, as it becomes clear that his actions, once driven by personal ambition, are now under the firm control of a higher power. The talking donkey in Balaam's story is not just a curious oddity, it serves as a profound symbol of divine intervention and wisdom. In ancient Israelite thought, animals, particularly donkeys, were often seen as humble creatures, yet they carried deep symbolic meaning. In this narrative, the donkey's refusal to move forward and her eventual speech serve as a vehicle for divine correction, revealing Balaam's spiritual blindness. The lesson here is not only that Balaam's anger and impatience blinded him to the presence of God's messenger, but also that God, in his sovereignty, can use the most unlikely instruments to fulfill his will. By allowing the donkey to speak, God forces Balaam to confront his own limitations. The donkey, an animal with no capacity for prophecy, becomes the bearer of truth, highlighting the stark contrast between Balaam's prophetic status and his inability to perceive the angel of the Lord. This reversal of roles is a powerful message. Those who think they have the clearest vision of divine will, such as Balaam, may in fact be spiritually blind. The donkey, in its simple faithfulness, becomes the true seer in this moment, serving as a mirror to Balaam's own shortcomings. Milgrom's commentary underscores the idea that this incident isn't just about Balaam's failure to recognize God's will. It speaks to the broader biblical theme that divine wisdom and guidance often come through unexpected channels. The donkey's speech challenges the prevailing notion of power, showing that God's guidance can come from the most humble and sometimes the most overlooked sources. This moment serves as a reminder that true spiritual insight requires humility, and those who are open to God's correction, no matter the form it takes, will see with clearer eyes. After the dramatic encounter with the angel and the miraculous speaking of the donkey, Balaam proceeds with his mission, but his approach begins to shift. He arrives in Moab, where King Balak anxiously awaits his arrival, expecting that Balaam will finally curse Israel. However, Balaam, now fully aware of God's power and sovereignty, stands in stark contrast to the hired prophet he once seemed to be. Rather than delivering the curse that Balak desires, Balaam delivers a series of prophecies that surprise everyone, including himself. In the first prophecy, Balaam declares that Israel is a blessed nation, destined to thrive and overcome its enemies. This prophecy is especially remarkable given that Balaam is expected to curse Israel. Instead, he recognizes the divine protection that surrounds the Israelites, and in doing so, affirms their chosen status in the eyes of God. Balak, frustrated by this unexpected turn of events, insists that Balaam try again, this time on a different location, hoping for a different outcome. Yet each time Balaam opens his mouth, blessings rather than curses pour out. The most significant prophecy comes in the form of an oracle about the future of Israel, where Balaam speaks of a coming king who will rise from among the Israelites, a reference that many scholars view as a messianic prophecy. This prophecy not only reveals Israel's divine future, but also points toward a broader scope of God's redemptive plan for humanity. Balaam, though a foreign prophet, speaks with authority on behalf of the God of Israel, confirming the divinely ordained destiny of the people he was hired to curse. Milgrom's analysis of these prophetic oracles highlights a central theme in the story: God's plan cannot be thwarted by human schemes. Despite Balak's efforts and Balaam's initial hesitations, God's will prevails, showing that even the most powerful of kings cannot alter the course of history when it is set by the Almighty. Despite his powerful prophecies and divine guidance, Balaam's story takes a darker turn in the later chapters of the book of Numbers. After delivering his blessings to Israel, Balaam's role in the narrative begins to shift once again, revealing the complexity of his character. While Balaam is portrayed as a prophet who listens to God, his desire for wealth and honor ultimately leads him down a troubling path. In Numbers 25, Israel becomes entangled in sin, falling into idolatry and sexual immorality with the Moabites. Balaam's influence, though indirect, plays a crucial role in this moral downfall. Milgrom's commentary suggests that Balaam's true failure lies in his inability to fully resist the temptation of material gain. Although he refrains from cursing Israel directly, the prophet's later actions seem to indicate that he secretly advises Balak on how to weaken Israel spiritually. It is implied that Balaam counsels the Moabites on how to lead Israel into sin through the seduction of idolatry and immoral practices. His counsel becomes the means through which Israel is lured away from faithfulness to God. This turning point highlights an important theme in the Bible: the peril of compromising one's convictions for the sake of personal gain. Balaam's initial refusal to curse Israel was noble, yet his failure to fully align his actions with God's will ultimately brings about consequences. The story of Balaam warns readers about the dangers of allowing personal desires to cloud spiritual judgment. It underscores the reality that God's purposes may be fulfilled through an individual, but if that individual is not fully surrendered to God's will, their disobedience can lead to far-reaching consequences. Thus, while Balaam's prophecies are accurate, his personal failure reveals a critical flaw: his inability to remain faithful and fully obedient to the God who had shown him mercy and favor. Balaam's story, with all its twists and turns, leaves us with a lasting lesson on the complexities of human nature and divine will. Despite his undeniable prophetic abilities, Balaam's ultimate failure is not due to a lack of skill or insight, but a failure of the heart. He is a man caught between two worlds: the world of wealth and prestige offered by Balak, and the world of divine purpose which demands obedience and humility. His journey reveals that it's not enough to merely speak the truth. True faithfulness requires aligning one's life with that truth. Balaam's inability to do so led to tragic consequences not just for him, but for the Israelites as well. One of the most striking aspects of Balaam's story is the role of free will. While Balaam is repeatedly guided by God, his choices remain his own. God's sovereignty is clear, but Balaam's heart remains open to temptation, and ultimately he gives in. This tension between God's will and human choice is a theme that reverberates throughout the Bible. Balaam's actions serve as a reminder that while God's plans are unstoppable, human beings still play an active role in their unfolding. The question then becomes not whether we can thwart God's plans, but how we align ourselves with them. Balaam's final fate is not just a cautionary tale about greed. It's a lesson on the importance of integrity, obedience, and humility. His prophetic words, though inspired by God, are overshadowed by his personal desires, which cloud his ability to fully walk in God's truth. For modern readers, this story serves as a reminder that living according to God's will requires more than just speaking the right words. It demands the right heart and the willingness to follow through with actions. As we reflect on Balaam's journey, it challenges us to examine our own lives. Are we living in alignment with God's purpose for us, or are we, like Balaam, torn between two paths? The story of Balaam and his donkey is not just ancient history, it's a timely lesson for each of us, reminding us that our choices matter, and that God's purposes are often more grand and meaningful than we might ever imagine. If you found this story as thought-provoking as I did, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. How does Balaam's journey challenge your view of obedience and personal ambition? Let's continue the conversation and learn from this fascinating biblical account together.